The record, would you just introduce yourself?
I'm Jack Golden, 80 years in one day.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right. And Jack, were you born or did you grow up in Savannah?
I was born and I grew up in Savannah. Right?
And who are you related to? How far back does your family come in Savannah?
We're not related to, well, one thing that marked us really was we were not related to any major group or groupings in Savannah. Um, on my father's side, uh, his uncle Simon Golden was here, and actually there were two more of the Golden brothers in Walterboro, and I recently learned that we were in Darien too. So I would like someday to go down to Darien and see what. I really doubt there's anyone left, and probably no marker left in Darien. But as the tale is told, my father had his bar mitzvah in, oh, give me a moment to try to pull up names that I haven't spoken or heard in a long time. My father was born in Rizhnoi, Grodno Gubernia, and his father, Michal, manufactured blankets for the Russian army. He was a man of some wealth, and as my father told the story, one morning his father woke him up and said, "Come, Chaim, today you'll be bar mitzvah." After his bar mitzvah, that was the point when he was scheduled to go to the States. The usual story of my grandfather didn't want his children to work, to be grabbed off the street by the Cossacks. And Daddy went from Hamburg. No, I think my grandfather went from one city and Daddy went from another. The cities were Hamburg and Rotterdam or Amsterdam, which obviously are not together. And when they got to New York, there was family there. I have no idea why they didn't go together. Why they came to Savannah separately, as far as I know. But they did. And Uncle Simon and Auntie Bertha were, oh, I'm sorry, I'm missing the other side. Auntie Frida and the late Uncle Joe had been here. Auntie Frida was married to one of the Levy's, brother to Alta, and the other Levy's who became quite prominent in the city. But Uncle Joe died, leaving a wife and 3 daughters, and they lived across from the side of Mikvah Israel. They lived in number 5 East Gordon, and skipping a number of generations. I remember as a child going out on the balcony, second story balcony, and watching the Shabbos Jews coming out of Shushan mikveh Israel on Friday nights.
Was that your experience? Did you participate?
No, no, by some, well, not magic means. That's a point that I've never really known why my father, who was educated, was very educated in things Jewish, never went to shul. My mother would go and sit in her mother's place, but my dad never went, and I've maintained, whether I'm right or wrong, that my dad never came to my bar mitzvah. If he came, he never told me. Anyway, Daddy had nothing to do with religion, though he knew everything about it. And
You mentioned bar mitzvah. Wasn't that an unusual custom in mikveh Israel in those years?
We did not go to mikveh Israel. In those years, my mother's parents had gone to Bibi Jacob, and my father's family, well, Uncle Simon, and I certainly imagine that Uncle Joe had gone to Bibi Jacob. We were Litvak. We were not born to the Dutchen. Although as the years went by, marrying in or out, my mother could not speak or read a word of Hebrew, but she went because her mama had sat in that second balcony, and she would sit there and read the English. So
tell me about your education. You were bar mitzvah, so you must have gone to religious school. What was that like, and where did you go?
I went at the corner of Hall and Abercorn, and I went there long enough to learn how to be bar mitzvah. And I studied privately with Mr. Rosenberg, as opposed to Rabbi Rosenberg. And I was really there for the period of learning to do the bar mitzvah.
Do you remember a sense of accomplishment? It was what everybody did. Was it expected of you? And what was it like in those days to have a bar mitzvah? Was there a party? Was there a certain sense of obligation? What was the event like?
I don't think that I absorbed a particularly strong sense of being Jewish there. I didn't mention, and it has had a great effect on the kind of Jew I became. My mother's eldest sister, Betty, married Victor, and that has given me my one relative in Savannah, which is Herbert. Betty was Herbert's grandmother. And when I came back to Savannah, and even my mother, as she grew older, was very close to the Victors and the Steinheimers. And what else? I remember going to the student children's service at B.B. Jacob. I was keenly aware that I did not have my father there like others did. I would go on occasion to sit next to my great uncle, and we were certainly not close. He seemed to be many generations beyond me. And anyway, if there was some reason that I had to go to the main part, I would go upstairs and sit with Uncle Sammy. On the other hand, my closest relative of that side was Doris Golden Lucan. And we were close. Mama and Doris were close, and she was sort of like an older sister. And
Doris was extremely involved in Jewish leadership throughout the community. Were you similarly involved, or did she provide you with any inspiration in that regard?
I'd have to say no. Um, I came up a different line. Uh, we were the only Jewish people in our neighborhood. The next would have been the Robbins family, uh, just catty-cornered from Charles Ellis. So I didn't have, I have lots of playmates, friends. They were not Jewish. And my closest friends didn't go to synagogues. So I went through the chairs in DeMolay, if you know what DeMolay is. I'm a past master counselor.
Are there a lot of Jewish Masons?
I wouldn't know what it's like now, but at that time, the advisor, whose name was it was called Dad Brown. The story was that Dad Brown had been Jewish. He was a Jewish orphan, and he had made a point of seeing that Jewish children were made at home, made to feel. But yes, there were a number of Jewish people. So I was active in high school in things that were not Jewish. I did not belong to ACA. And I think that's a notable thing. My brother was very active in ACA.
Just personal choice, or you didn't like the kids, or you didn't have time?
The kids I ran around with were not Jewish. I don't think it was any animus toward the Jewish community. You know, we belonged to the community when there was a holiday. We carried matzahs to school. And it's just that there was not a strong bond, which, though I've always felt a bit bad about that. I didn't have once I left Savannah, I was more in the Jewish, more out of the Jewish than in the Jewish side.
Did you ever experience anti-Semitism? Were you ever singled out in public school or in public life because you were Jewish? Or did it ever hold you back?
No, neither held me back, nor was I singled out. I've tried many times to think what anti-Semitic could have happened to me. I do recall at some point I was called a true boy, but I had very strong friendships. And my mother, I think, every Pesach, Mama took matches around to all the neighbors and made a point to let people know that we are Jewish. And she was very popular. She was with the neighborhood. She was.
Are there lessons from Jewish ethics that you learned just because your parents lived that kind of life? Are there things that are really part of growing up Jewish that you think, without even knowing it maybe, have become part of who you are as an adult?
Yes, I do believe so. I do believe I thought my father was the most honest man in the city, and that it was partly, certainly, because he was Jewish. It was not a question. My father was not a terribly pleasant person, but I would tell you in the same breath, there's no one more honest or decent. So
What's your connection to the Jewish community like now?
I was, uh, my career was as a foreign service officer. First with the U.S. Foreign Service, and then with the United Nations. And I spent 40 years, 40 years in the desert. I was usually places where I could go to a service or a ceremony. There was none to have, or you find someone in the community that you could mix with, bond with. But I was definitely in a foreign land in all senses. And, I would feel very lonely on a Yom Kippur, or I'd say I'm the only Jew in Manhattan that doesn't have a place to go. I wasn't aware, since there were a lot more than that, but when I was anywhere near family or friends who were Jewish, I was invited up as part of the ceremony. But I found, particularly working in New York, that I was offended at the thought that I would have to buy a ticket to pray. And I was offended to find every butcher shop who could buy your tickets now, getting ready for the holiday. And I used to go out to my aunts on Long Island, and they would somehow find a ticket for me. They would buy a ticket for me. But again, I was odd man out. So when I came back to Savannah, I said, I want to become part of the community. And I sort of threw myself, relatively speaking, into McPhail Trail. There was no question about going to maybe Jacob. So I was on the board for a year and a half, I think. But at that time, I still loved to travel. I still found traveling more fulfilling than what Savannah had to offer me. And I reached a point where I said to the part of us, I'm encumbering a place on this board. I'm here. I'm away every couple of weeks. I'm going here or there, and I feel I should resign. Give someone else who is going to be there. And I've always had a feeling that he took it that I didn't want to serve on his boards. He didn't seem at all sorry when I left.
What are the things about Savannah that you enjoy now? And is there any memory that you have about being Jewish that was enhanced because you live here? Obviously serving on the board and take that kind of responsibility, but...
I love Savannah for its beauty. And could that be Jewish? Yes, it could in a sense, because the history of Savannah is more imbued with Jewish history. And Coast of Dawson, I'm very happy to tell people about. It made me a little prouder, because I am a secular Jew. I was showing off my city, and I was proud to be Jewish. And there's one aspect that I always had to be concerned about, and I think we could talk politics here. I was Rabbi Belzer and I arrived the same. He came for that first Yontif, and that was my first Yontif. 90, I think it was. Um, and I did not have any what terrible arguments with Belzer. What I had with Belzer was I was looking. I'm a spiritual Jew. I'm spiritual whether I'm Jewish or not. And I felt that I was missing that. I needed it. And also, I was not glitzy, and I didn't feel I needed. I felt his approach was different than what I needed. I was happy with, so I didn't really go a great deal into Judaism as practiced here in Israel. But I still felt very proud.
Is is there something that we didn't talk about that you would like to talk about growing up in Savannah or living in Savannah?
I'd have to do some sorting and pick out what glitters and is gold, because there are some places there. Well, that not mentioned one, which is that. Well, I was also very glad that we were part of a community, because what I had been brought up to was I served in organizations that did for others. And I have always felt that the Jewish community, and certainly up until the time I came back, did not really, that was not their concern. If they gave to charity, their first cause charity for the Jewish community. And mind you, I mean, I try not, when I'm assessing who I will give charity to, if it has Christians written on it, I'm not interested. I want to give where it's not sectarian, where the need is important, not where you go to church. And I have, probably for that case, I don't respond as many people in Connecticut for Israel do for what is Jewish. You know, I feel there are many people who don't share this with me. And, you know, I sometimes I come to a point where I'm giving for the flood victims in Pakistan, and I'm saying, I know they tear me apart. If, you know, I have lived, I have practical experience in countries where Jews, for whatever reason, are not popular. And the curious thing is that some of the people have been wonderful. I mean, I know better than most that if they, well, not too long ago, I cut off friendship with some people who had been very nice to me, because they send me something like, you send these things to everybody, you don't know who they are. And it was something that was very ugly towards Jews. That, you know, I said, you've known me for all these years, and if you have not been able to take my own help over these years, and when I have a lady who's been with me 24 years, and she is as much the lady of the house as I may be the man of the house. And she did not like Jews when she came. She didn't know what a Jew was. She would see, you know, that big hairy man across the street, and that's that Jew, she would call it. I said, he's not Jewish. Where'd you get that? What is coming here? You know, and I thought, gee, I wish I were if that's the case. But no, I'm comfortable. I'm comfortably Jewish. And I don't worry about what other people think. You know, this, well, the that question about the mosque in New York City, I mean, that I cannot say don't have a mosque because, you know, I think
Kind of live as let live.
sure, and look at everybody for their humanity and their you don't make. I don't like hatred in any form. I say I don't like any doxies, and I'm like orthodoxy, the Orthodox Jews, the Orthodox Christians, and the Orthodox Muslims. I think that we'll never get together if we maintain this.
Any parting piece of wisdom for young people that might be seeing this Sunday?
I was saving a little something for the back of my monument. But when I die, I'm not proselytizing, so I wouldn't put it there. But on the back, there was a statement I made when my high school class had its 50th reunion. And I'll send it to you. I don't want to quote it to you.
Thank you.
I don't have it, but
Thank you. I appreciate that.
it should please tell people who I was. Anyway,
Thank you. Thank you.
I have things that I know you're looking for some kind of
Documentation.
documentation. I didn't bring anything with me, but
But would you look
I'll
and then
look,
call
I'll
me
look,
and
yeah.
see? And let me help you with this.
oh, thank you.
Okay.
That's okay.
What I'm gonna, throughout the next really 2 or 3 weeks, I'm working on getting all this stuff together. And then in the month of August, we're just going into production. So if you have things I can photograph, the things that we can scan, anything you have that's a digital copy or that you can bring to Mikveh Israel and ask